Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Wednesday, January the 19th. We have what I absolutely love, a 13-game NBA slate. So 26 of the 30 teams will be participating this evening, and it's all in one card. It's not busted up like it was the other day on MLK Day. So, man, this is what you dream of. So we're going after this full barrels. I've been working on this slate for several hours already and still have all afternoon to get organized before we get into lock. So great to have you with us. I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I will be walking through these 13 games. We'll be looking at a combination, as we usually do, of where the teams stand, what do they look like, what's the statistical piece of it? How do we see these matchups happening? And where are we looking to put our initial lineups for now? So again, you can build those lineups, get them set from the pod, but then you have to watch news. Just be right in our Discord, and any of the breaking news, anybody in or out of protocol, any trades that'll start happening, which is a big deal now. February 10th is the trade deadline, and there's all kinds of rumors of people moving all over the place. So stay with us. We'd love to have you. DFSCoachTalk.com. You can sign up for as little as 3 days for $10 and get everything that we have to offer. All right, my friends, no messing around today. We don't have time to do so. It's that busy of a day. So we have the very first game on the slate, and that is the Orlando Magic and the Philadelphia 76ers. Philadelphia is favored by 12, and we definitely know Orlando has been horrific lately. So blowout potential in game one. Got to keep our eyes on that. Low total 212 for a blowout potential game. So not going to be a great DFS game to start the slate. It is 100 implied for Orlando and 112 implied for the Philadelphia 76ers. So with this game coming in, Orlando is non-impressive 8-37. Philly's up to 7 games over 500 now at 25-18. Injury designations: Wendell Carter Jr. questionable. That's an important piece of information. Then we have Michael Carter-Williams out, Fultz out, Isaac out, Moore out. For Philadelphia, we already know who's out. It's Green, Milton, Simmons, and Thibault. So as we go back to look at this game again, you got the double whammy, low total, potential blowout, definitely scares you off some guys here. If you're going to go anywhere, you want to go on the cheap, really. At least that's what I'm looking at. Cole Anthony, a little pricey at $7K. Wendell Carter Jr., if he does play, is $7.3. If Bamba's out or doesn't start like he has been the last 2 games, Robin Lopez is in there at $3.6 if you want to go super buy down. But again, we can be extraordinarily picky today with 26 teams playing. So if Bamba's going to split time with Lopez, that's the perfect example of something you want no part of whatsoever. Franz Wagner's all the way down to 5.5, but he's been very inconsistent. So not anything jumping out at me on the Orlando side. Philadelphia, is this the game to pay up for 11K? Joel Embiid, I'm not going to do it with all the studs on this slate and, trying to keep salary in place as we buy up for some of these stars. After that, though, there are some options. Tobias Harris is only 6.7. That is a low price for him. He's usually in the 7s and 8s for the most of the season. But since he's been into a little bit of a verbal battle with fans and been rumored in trade talks, he has not been producing consistently. But at 6.7, man, it's a shot right there. You could get a guy that could, get a 50 or 60 burger. I mean, he's got that potential. We've seen it. Other than that, Curry at 6K, you can think about Tyrese Maxey at 6.2. But again, very possibly may not have any exposure here in game one. All right, game 2, also 7 o'clock. There's only 2 7 o'clock games. It is the Brooklyn Nets and Washington Wizards. Washington's favored by 1.5. It's a 231.5 total. 115 applied for Brooklyn, 116.5 for the Washington Wizards. Coming into this game, Brooklyn's 27-16. Washington is 23-21. Oh, you know what? I forgot on the first game. Let's go back and straighten that out right now. Let's get this going. Statistically speaking, Orlando is 13th in pace, Philadelphia 27th. So that doesn't help matters. Orlando is 24th defensively, and Philadelphia is 14th. So something to consider there. All right, back to Brooklyn and Washington. Their statistical analysis, you have Brooklyn, the 7th fastest team in the league, Washington 21st, so evens out a bit. Brooklyn's 11th defensively, and Washington 21st. As far as designations for injury, Bembry questionable. And out, we have Claxton, Durant, Harris, and Millsap. No designations of injury whatsoever for Washington. So very unusual in this day and age for sure. Brooklyn, like I said, 27-16, Washington 23-21. So 2 potential playoff teams here. Brooklyn, the big thing is, do you spend up for James Harden? It's a game that we're going to get Kyrie Irving because it's in Washington. So that takes a little bit of the luster off an automatic Harden play. With Irving in at 9.3, a little high for him. Harden's 11.6, which again, yes, he's a great play. I get it. But, you've got decent defense from Washington. It's not good, but it's not the bottom of the barrel. And their pace hasn't been good. So that is a bit of a concern there. And that's not where I'm going to look for my pay up for that reason. I think Kessler Edwards is starting to play consistent ball. He's 4.3. Same with Day'Ron Sharpe. He's 4.4, but is he going to get enough minutes is the question. LaMarcus Aldridge is in the mix at 4.6. I think he deserves a mention, although his minutes have been very choppy as well. Off the bench, just too many guys to mention. And you can, like I said, you can be very picky here with this many teams playing. On the Washington side, Bradley Beal's a fair 8.9. I think that price sits pretty well for him. I think that he deserves some interest here at that sub-9 price. Dinwiddie did not get it done the last time at 6.5. When Beal's in, it really does just suck the life out of Dinwiddie's ownership, and for good reason, because he's not getting it done consistently. KCP 4.3, always a good GPP shot. He's up and down all over the place. Kuzma's expensive. He's 7.8, but man, has he been so good lately. Just the rebounding numbers have been fantastic. So I think that he's definitely a consideration today. Not interested at all in Daniel Gafford or Montrezl Harrell. I'm starting to get interested in Thomas Bryant. He's 3.7 and he's getting in there more and more. And I'm looking forward to when I can feel comfortable to roster him. But I have to see him up over that 25 to 28 minute mark first. This game, the reason it's intriguing is Washington's only favored by 1.5, and it's a 231.5 total. 115 implied for Brooklyn and 116.5 for Washington. So very interesting game. Definitely can have some pieces. Don't think I'm going to spend way up on the Brooklyn side. I like some of the value pieces and guys like Edwards. And then Washington, the question will be, is it time to fire up a Beal or a Kuzma? Those are my top 2 targets on the Wizards side of the ball. All right, we move to the 7:30 spot. There's 3 games at that spot. First one is Portland Trailblazers and Miami Heat. Portland is an underdog here on the road by 9. It's a 215.5 total. So very interesting here with that spread. Is it going to stay close enough is the $1 million question. Portland's 18-25. Miami's 28-16. You have Dennis Smith Jr. is probable for Portland. CJ Ellaby questionable. Powell doubtful, so we're going to count him out for now. We know Lillard, Nance, and Zeller are out. For Miami, you've got Lowry, Morris, Okpala, and Oladipo are all out. So you definitely have some interest here in some fair price guys that get my attention. Portland is 17th in pace and Miami's 28th. So that is a negative. Also, Portland 28th defensively. So that is a big plus for the Heat, buy-up potential for the Heat. And Miami's defense is 8th best in the league. So definitely a little concern more for the Portland side. Plus, you've got, Simons has played well, but now with CJ McCollum back, it's a much tougher purchase there. Simons at 7.4. CJ McCollum is 8K already, just after being back a short stint here. Nazir Little had a really good game the last time. He's 5.7. Covington's been stepping it up at 6.1. And Nurkic pretty much broke the slate last time out, but he's all the way up now to 8.7. So it's not an easy play as it was when he was much cheaper. On the Heat side, obviously the two guys you can talk about are Jimmy Butler at 9.1. He's always a pretty safe buy-up. When he's out there, he's getting his. Bam Adebayo, is back. He's 7.7. And he seems to be right back in the thick of things and in play, so he can be a consideration. Hard to believe last game, though. Omar Yurtseven really saved their biscuits here, if you will, during that whole time Bam was out. He got a DNP coach's decision the last game now that Bam's back. So a little surprising there. I thought they'd leave Yurtseven in for, even 15 minutes a game. But we'll see if that changes as time goes. Really, other than that, Hero off the bench, of course. 7.3 is a fair price for him. I do like Hero at that number. I think he can still be extremely strong. And Portland's defense is just awful. So, Butler and Hero would be the two targets. Maybe Bam, but his just being back so recently, it's hard to completely trust his spot here. All right, the second 7:30 game is the Charlotte Hornets and the Boston Celtics. Boston's favored by 4.5, 107.5 implied for Charlotte, 112 for the Boston Celtics. So Boston, another home game here. Charlotte comes in very impressive, 24-20. Better record than the Celtics at 23-22. Not much news here. Kelly Oubre is actually questionable. He may be back, so we have to watch that. That affects their rotation a lot. For Boston, we've got Naismith and Smart are questionable, so we want to follow them. And then we have Bol. He'll be out for a while. He had a surgery, but Boston did pick him up yesterday by trade. All right, back to the numbers here. We've got Charlotte second in the league in pace. So monster pace up for Boston. That just definitely puts a shining little check mark next to Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, especially with being able to play against a pace like that. Boston's only 24th, so it is a pace down game for LaMelo and company. Also, Charlotte has to face the 5th best defense in the entire league in Boston, and Charlotte not so much. They are all the way down to 25th. So some good things for Boston. We've been targeting Charlotte. I think it's still a good idea. It's only a 4.5 point spread, so that gives you some hope. It's just always making that tough decision. Jaylen Brown is 8.6. Tatum is 9.4. I think they're both playable commodities here. I really do. So it's a matter of determining which way you want to go there. I'd like to have exposure to one of those guys. After that, Smart just coming back. I'm not going to go there. Horford 5.3, but he was a disappointment the last time out. Robert Williams gets back, and Horford sort of didn't get it done even with Williams out, but now Williams is back at 7-1. Schroeder's been terrific off the bench lately. He is 6-4. So definitely not a bad game to have some exposure. I think the Celtics are in a better spot and wouldn't mind definitely getting one of the main guys from Boston and maybe even a value spot. All right, we go to the next 7:30 game. It is the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta's a 2.5-point favorite. We have a nice total here, 233. 115.25 implied for Minnesota, 117.75 for the Atlanta Hawks. Coming into the game, Minnesota's 22-22. They are the only, there's two teams on the second night of a back-to-back. Minnesota's one of them, and they had a very hard-fought game that came right down to the wire where they were able to beat the Knicks in Madison Square. Went strong and long game, and then they had to travel to Atlanta, and they're playing Atlanta at 18-25. The wheels have definitely come off for Atlanta, but Minnesota on the second night of a back-to-back after a really tough game, we have to wait and see if there's any news or anybody sitting out as the day progresses. Right now for Minnesota, McLaughlin's out. For Atlanta, Bogdanovich and Capella, two starters, still remain out for Atlanta. Statistically speaking, we've got Minnesota is third in the league in pace, Atlanta 19th, so good pace-up game for Atlanta, but you wonder if Minnesota will play a little slower, being that it's a back-to-back. As far as defensively, Minnesota's 10th, and Atlanta's second to last in the entire league. They are 29th. So it's a hard call. I mean, everything tempts you to want to play T-Wolves, but then you get worried about the fact that they were extended yesterday and had to play big minutes in that first game of the back-to-back against the Knicks. So let's look at this here. Patrick Beverley, 5'2", not consistent, wouldn't go there. You've got your regular guys, D'Angelo Russell, 7'6", Anthony Edwards, 7'8", and Cat is 9'5". They all get a possibility of being rostered in a game with a 233 total where they're only underdogs by 2.5. Somebody's going to have to step up if they're going to stay in this game and play a lot of minutes on a back-to-back. So there is definitely some concern there with the rotation of how are they going to, go minutes-wise. And they do have a good bench. Jaden McDaniels, Malik Beasley, Naz Reid, Jalen Noel. Those four guys in particular are pretty strong players off the bench. They have a nice team. They should have a better record than they do, to be honest with you. But, we'll see what the news states. We'll check out the coach speak and beat writer information. If somebody's going to sit and somebody's elevated, it could make one of those bench guys very playable. If they're going to go full tilt, then, buying up to a mid-level priced Russell or Edwards is not a bad idea. On the Atlanta side, island game for them, certainly Trae Young, you can talk about it 9-8. He's, been up and down this part of the season. He's had some slumps, but he's also had games where he's completely dominated like he did earlier this week. Just really was fantastic. But he does give Pat Bev defense if Pat Bev's going to go back-to-back nights. But, we'll see. Trae Young, to me, at 9-8 is expensive, but he's the kind of guy, especially if Pat Bev is limited, could really do well. Cheap-wise, you've got Kevin Huerter at 5K, DeAndre Hunter at 4.2. Very interesting. John Collins at 7K, always in play because his price is right. But then you've got a lot of guys where it gets a little bit tough. Okongwu sort of splitting minutes with Gorgie Jang. Collins does slide down and play the 5, so not really interested in the bigs there. Gallinari's been finishing games. He's 4.2. He could be considered as well. We're going to have to go to the coffee today. 13 games, that's not playing around. All right, we go to the first 8 o'clock game. There's 2 of them as well. First one is Memphis Grizzlies at the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee favored by 6.5, 225 total, 109.25 implied for Memphis, 115.75 for the Grizz. Interesting game here because it's at Milwaukee, but it's only a 6.5 point spread. And I'll tell you what, nobody's been much hotter than the Memphis Grizzlies. They've been fantastic. Memphis comes in 31-15. How about that? Milwaukee's 27-19. So they are chasing Memphis's record. Guys that are out for Memphis: Anderson, Bain, Brooks, and Tilly. So that will create a bit of a shuffle. Milwaukee, it's Holiday questionable. That's huge news. We really need that news. And Brook Lopez remains out. So some really good plays here. This could be a key pivotal game on the slate. Right now, Memphis is 6th in pace and Milwaukee 10th. So you got 2 of the top 10 pace, which gives you a lot of interest. The 225 numbers fair. The only tough part is you have 2 top 10 teams in defense. Memphis 7th and Milwaukee 9th. And nobody's been better than Memphis over the last 2 months. The Grizz and the Mavericks have just blown away defensively everybody in the league the last month. So, that defense does cause some concern, but there are key guys out. Brooks and Bain are the key cogs for Memphis on defense. So that concerns me. Can Milwaukee just handle them with a few of their key guys out? And I think that answer could be correct. So I'm not going to pile drive this game. Milwaukee only a 6.5 point Vegas favorite, but it just feels like a game where Milwaukee's, especially if they get Drew Holiday back, could put it together. Speaking of the Milwaukee side of the ball, when you have Drew Holiday, if he is back at 8-1, Chris Middleton at 8-8, Giannis at 12K, and Bobby Portis at 7, now you've got 4 guys you're trying to slide into lineups, but they're not cheap. And they are going to split some usage, and they're playing a decent defensive team. But, the question is who steps up? Do you go all the way up to Giannis at 12K on this big of a slate? That's the question. Can Memphis keep it really close without 2 key players in Bain and Brooks? If it is the case that they stay tight, it's going to have to be Ja Morant having one of his phenomenal games. And he's 8-9, which isn't that bad. I mean, I think that, I'm very tempted there to go Ja Morant. But if Drew Holiday is back, that matchup is not fun for him. Drew's a dog on defense. But how many minutes is Drew going to get just coming back, or is he even going to play? So we need that news to make a final decision. But Ja Morant is one of my pay-up options today. I think 8-9 is extremely fair for him. And picking up some of that usage from Brooks and from Bain is going to be a big plus. There are 2 really good super cheap guys in this game with the guys that are out. DeAnthony Melton at 3.7 and Zaire Williams at 3.1. Really like those 2 guys. Could make the decision to go with one of them as one of my big value plays here. And whenever you have a game, 26 of the 30 teams playing like this, you're going to have some stars and scrubs lineups most of the time because there's so much value that's there now and that opens up during the day that it's hard not to buy up to the Ja Morants of the world. Jaren Jackson Jr. at 6'6", not going to go there, trying to guard Giannis and not get in foul trouble. No. Steven Adams, 4'9". He's been decent. He and Bobby Portis are both dogs, though. They both play hard. So I don't know if that cancels each other out a little bit or not. So for me, it's more so, do I want to pay up for one of the Bucks guys? I may if Holiday sits. If he plays, though, I think it just gets spread out too much. And maybe Ja Morant's the target. Wouldn't mind a Ja and, somebody from that side if I can make the salary work. I do like this game. I think it's a key game on the slate. All right, we move on to another 8 o'clock game. Cleveland Cavaliers, Chicago Bulls. Cleveland favored by 3. It's a 218.5 total. 110.75 implied for the Cavaliers. 107.75 for the Chicago Bulls. So Cleveland comes in 27-18. Chicago 27-15. Only 2 guys out for Cleveland are Rondo and Stevens, and then Caruso is probable for Chicago. So that's a big piece for them to get back because he makes their defense go, and they've been getting smashed around in some of the games recently. Tyler Cook questionable, and then the guys out: Lonzo Ball, Green, Jones, Levine, and Williams. So they're definitely missing some punch from their lineup. There's no question about it. As far as statistically speaking, Cleveland 23rd in pace, Chicago 14th. So nothing to write home about there. We have Cleveland third best defensive team in the league, and Chicago's only 19th, even with that good record. They're in the lower half of the defensive efficient teams in the league. So how strong is that Cleveland defense? We'll see what it looks like here in this game. Garland is a nice play at 9K. I think he's a really good pay up. He's in a game situation here with no Rondo as the backup. And, I think this game stays close. The fact that Cleveland's a 3-point favorite on the road is sort of shocking to me. But I'm sure that's going to incite some people being fired up from the Bulls side. After that, Markkanen at 5.7, he can get you there. Pretty decent floor, but a somewhat limited ceiling. He's decent, but I don't know if he's over the top. And then the confusion of who do you play, Evan Mobley or Jared Allen? Well, they make it even more difficult. They're both priced at 7.7. So now you've got a complete, flat-out decision here. I personally think Mobley's a little bit better in this matchup, but Allen also is playable. So I like both guys. One of them's more than likely going to make my lineup. And I don't have the courage on a 26 games or 26 teams playing to go both. If it was a small slate, yes, but I don't believe so here. Bench, a little non-sequential here. Kevin Love's decent off the bench, but I'm not going to go there either. As far as the Bulls go, Kobe White is a good play again. He disappointed, though, the last time out, but he is only 6'5", which is up from where he was. You're going to get plays from Dosunmu and McKinney. Everybody's been sort of flooding to those guys because their value and they're playing minutes with the guys out. But the reason I don't like those guys that much, I think you can be more picky on this slate, that more than likely Alex Caruso's back, and he's going to soak up minutes from both of those guys. They may even go to Troy Brown Jr. a little bit. So I'm not a huge Dosunmu or McKinney fan unless you want to play GPP. I think that the top play to go to on the Bulls side is DeMar DeRozan. He's led that team, even though they've had solid players up and down, but he is 9-2. So there's a big commitment there. But, in this matchup, I think he's tough. He does go against that really good Cleveland defense. So he's not a plug and play, but he's in high consideration for one of my lineups. Vuk, on the other hand, at 9K, I know he's got some nice ceiling, but with Mobley and Allen, double dipping the bigs inside, I just don't see this as being an outstanding matchup for Vuk. Caruso, maybe one game away from being really relative for me. Need to see what he has and what's going on, how he's feeling. He's 4.8 right now. All right. We move on to a duo of two 8:30 games. Oklahoma City Thunder, San Antonio Spurs. Spurs are a 6.5 point favorites. It's a 219 total. 106.25 for the Thunder, 112.75 for the Spurs. We've got, coming into this game, Oklahoma City is a disappointing 14-29. Spurs, an equally disappointing 16 and 28. Hate to see Pop go out with such a lousy team. For the Thunder, we know Kenrich Williams is out. For the Spurs, Trey Jones out. The newly acquired Juancho Hernan Gomez, is probable, so he may suit up tonight for the Spurs. As far as statistically, they're both on an island game. Oklahoma City 16th in pace, Spurs 4th. So good pace up game for the Thunder. Defensively, 15th for Oklahoma, 20th for San Antonio. So there is some room for some points in this game. 219, not a great over/under. Spurs 6.5 point favorite. The way they play, and I'm surprised they're that much of a favorite. We can look at a couple things here. SGA, always an option. Seems like every night at 8.4, but he does get, what I think will be one of the defensive first team players in DeJounte Murray defensively, and he leads the league in steals. So a little bit of a damper on SGA's potential in this game. And then on the flip side, Murray at 9.7 has been amazing, but he's going to get some Lou Dort defense. So, some potential with those guys, but nothing that jumps off the board. Giddey, always a good ceiling, triple-double waiting to happen, but he's 6'8", so that's a lot of commitment. Really wouldn't touch Baisley, Robinson, Earl, Mann, Jerome. Aaron Wiggins has been okay, but just those guys are so hard to trust, especially on a big slate like this. So not jumping out of my seat really for anybody on the Thunder side. Spurs, it's a similar story. You've got Pop, number one. You've got a new guy they just traded for and Juancho Hernan Gomez. That will, mix things up a little bit. And the prices aren't fantastic. Like I said, Murray at 9.7, White at 6.2. Keldon Johnson, I haven't even heard his name in a long time. He's 5'5". Pirtle's all the way up to 6'9". So, just a little bit of fear of playing any Spurs because, Devin Vassell and Lonnie Walker is going to get some run. I wouldn't be surprised if Hernan Gomez gets in there as well. So a little bit of a concern here. Not my favorite game whatsoever. I think I might not have any usage at all in this game. So very interesting. All right, next game. The other 8:30 game, Toronto Raptors, Dallas Mavericks. Dallas favored by 4.5, 206.5 total. How about that? That is awful total. 101 implied for Toronto, 105.5 for the Dallas Mavericks. So this is definitely a slow-mo game, or at least it looks like it's going to be. Toronto comes in 21-20, Dallas 25-19. You have Gary Trent questionable, so that's an important piece of news. Birch and Dragic out for Toronto. For Dallas, you've got two players questionable. That's Maxi Kleber, who's been starting, and Reggie Bullock, who's been coming off the bench. Statistically speaking, the reason this game is such a low total is because of the pace. You have two teams that like to slow it down here. No question about it. You've got Toronto 25th, Dallas 29th, second slowest team in the league. It's also the first night of a back-to-back for the Dallas Mavericks. So that makes it even a little bit tougher. Then defensively, Toronto's 16th, so middle of the pack. The Mavs are all the way up to 4th, which is somewhat of a meteoric explosion, because they were 26th at a low point. Then they spent time in the low 20s, and then all of a sudden, the last 6 weeks, almost 2 months, they're up to 4th. So between the tough D that's being played, the slower pace, you have a few guys priced a little too high, makes it super, super tough. I mean, Van Vliet at 8.6 and Pascal Siakam at 9.1, Luka at 10.8, and then Kristaps at 7.8, and even Brunson at 6.8. Those are all good players, but those prices in a game that's going to be so slow, it's going to be very hard to get to those numbers. If I look anywhere, I think, you get a good deal on Anunoby and Barnes. They're 6'5" and 6'4". Precious Achiuwa had a great game the last time out, but that was against his old team, Miami. So I'm not sure he'll get enough minutes to really light it up here. We know Dallas has trouble guarding the interior, but with Barnes, Siakam, Achiuwa, it's going to get spread around a bit. So more than likely a pass game, even though you've got some really good players, and if you can cherry pick one of them out that has a big game, it'd be a big plus. If I went with anybody, Anunoby or Barnes would be the two guys I'd consider from the Toronto Raptors. All right. 9 o'clock game. Houston, only 9 o'clock game. Houston Rockets, Utah Jazz. Utah by 12 and a big 232 total. So we're in that dilemma. Big spread, so you got to worry about blowout, but you got a nice big total here. 110 implied for Houston, a super high 122 for the Utah Jazz. That's a serious number when you bust 120. That has to get attention because you need, some exposure there. As far as who's in and out, just John Wall out for Houston. We knew that. The big news is Donovan Mitchell's out for Utah, and they still have a 122 implied total. Hassan Whiteside also remains out. So very interesting here. You've got a team with pace as number one in the league with Houston. So that's why you're seeing those inflated numbers for the Jazz. And then 18th for Utah. Defensively, Houston's also dead last, 30th in the league. So they're the perfect team to target in DFS every night. Fastest pace, worst defense. Thank you. We love you, the Houston Rockets. Utah, on the other hand, is 12th in defense. So does this game stay close? That could sink you if it's a blowout early and they don't get extended minutes for Conley, Clarkson, Bogdanovich, O'Neal, or Gobert, and they go to the bench, you're in deep trouble. But if the Rockets hang tight and, these guys could blow up. Conley's a cheap 6,000. Bogdanovich is only 5'8". If you want to go way down, O'Neal is 4'7". Clarkson's only 5'5". So you got so much value here. Gobert is a fair 8'5". Lots of spots you can go. Definitely going to go there. I'm probably going to have two Jazz. I think they can hang. Houston can hang just long enough for the Jazz to pay off. Their prices are so low. I think they missed the boat on pricing the Jazz today. And then, with that poor defense from Houston, Utah guys having to pick up all the Donovan Mitchell usage as well. And it's spread out. You're going to see more for Conley and Clarkson and even Ingles and Bogdanovich. So very well could be the only team that has more than one player on my roster. And I think it's important to do it. Certainly going to be really watching, bite my nails that Houston stays in the game. If Houston stays in the game, is there anybody worth rostering there? I think there are. Kevin Porter's a little high at 6'5", but not bad. Jalen Green's getting back into the role at 4'8". We know Gordon is boom or bust. He can be single-digit points, or he could throw 45 on the board. He's all over the place, and makes him a really good GPP play, but a scary cash play, but one that can pay off for sure. He's only 5,000 flat. Jayshawn Tate, same sort of situation as Gordon as far as boom or bust. He's 5'7". Christian Wood is a fair 8'2", but he gets the Gobert and interior defense from the Jazz. No Whiteside, for that second depth. But Rudy Gay's no dummy. He's sort of playing the backup center now, and he's been around long enough. He's a smart defender. So not really thrilled about the Houston side, but more than likely going to have some Jazz, definitely going to have some Jazz exposure. All right, we have a 3-game late slate. We're doing the after-hour slate here at Coach Talk tonight. We're going to be supplying our main slate lineups at 6:35 Eastern for the 7 p.m. games. And that is a DraftKings coaches clipboard, which are 5 highlighted players, and then a bunch of other players to fill options to fill out your roster. Full cash and GPP lineups for both FanDuel and Yahoo. Then we're going to turn around and give you a core 5 for the after hours slate that we're about to discuss, and one lineup for both FanDuel and Yahoo for the late slate. So we're with you, man. We're on top of this. We're going to be ready if we have any late swap. Things are settling down a little bit as far as the COVID protocol stuff in the league. It's still not where we need it to be, but it's not, all replacement players like it had been there for a couple of weeks. So very exciting. Looking forward to this. Join us anytime, dfscoachtalk.com, and we'd love to have you jump in with us. If you're watching this on YouTube, a quick thumbs up, hit the membership button, give us a quick comment. We really, really appreciate that. We do this NBA podcast in front of the paywall 7 days a week. And really the one thing we ask, thumbs up, hit the subscribe, give us a comment. Love the pod, didn't love the pod, whatever. Just let us know something. Love to hear when you have some winners as well, so that we can show a little love to those that are our avid listeners. All right. Second coffee sip, 13 game slate, 2 coffee slips. I mean, come on. Not coffee slips, coffee sips is what I'm trying to say. All right, 10 o'clock, Clippers, Nuggets, Detroit 7.5, 212 total, 102.25 implied for the Clippers, 109.75 for the Denver Nuggets. Clippers are 22-23, which is really pretty miraculous considered no Kawhi, and they've missed George for most of the season, half the season. The Nuggets are 22-20. They're hanging in there as well with their own set of injuries and guys missing. For the Clippers, we've got Luke Kennard questionable, so he would affect the rotation a bit. We know George, Leonard, and Preston are out. For Denver, 3 guys out, Chanchar, Green, and Murray. So not bad. Like I say, it's getting a slim bit back to normal. We're getting there. Statistically, Clippers are 15th in pace, Denver 26th, not great. Defensively, Clippers are all the way in the 6 hole, so tough defensively. Denver down to 17, so they have slipped into the lower half of the league as far as defensive efficiency. So that does open up some things for some very fair price guys on both sides. I think you get a lot of bargains here. It's not a perfect game situation, with a 212 total, but Jackson's only 6K, Amir Coffey's 5'7", Marcus Morris 6'5", Nick Batum 5'3", and Zubac's 4'7". Off the bench, Mann 4'7", Bledsoe 4'9", Kennard, if he plays, 5'1", Ibaka 3'5", Hartenstein 3'6". So you say, wow, they don't have a single guy priced above 6'5" in their rotation. Pretty amazing. But it's not like any of them are like, oh, this guy is a dead lock. He's awesome. They're just very mediocre, and they all play together, and there's not anybody that completely jumps out. I mean, I've been given the nod to Reggie Jackson most of the year at this 6K number, but he's been super inconsistent. He actually has not shot the ball well. If you want to go with, Batum, he broke the slate almost last game at 5'3". We had him in a couple of our lineups, and he did a great job. He'd be a consideration. I'm not jumping out of my seat for him. Marcus Morris at 6'5", another guy that could be okay. But, I really respect Aaron Gordon defense and Jeff Green defense. They hustle and get after it, and that's probably who's going to be guarding Morris and Batum. So I'd lean a little more towards Jackson again, but he's been disappointing on a consistent basis. So it's not a bad idea just not to play any Clippers, to be honest with you. On the Denver side, maybe the pay up is the Joker at 12-4. Not going to get a ton of resistance from Zubats or Hartenstein or Ibaka. I mean, they're going to all try. But I would say of all the expensive guys, not that I'm going to go there for sure, but of all the expensive guys tonight, I like the Joker the most. 12-4 is a gut punch, but there's so much value that you can find that, you can get it done. If not, the 5-9 price for Gordon is very fair. 3-7 super cheap for Green if he's going to get the big minutes. Barton seems okay after that slight injury at 5-6. You can also look at him. The other guy that had an explosive game the other day is Bones Highland. They just need to let this kid play. He's 3-8. I'd love to play him, but I'm just not sure what his minutes are going to be. And it makes it way too risky. But a nice GPP spot for a guy like that for sure. All right, the other 10 o'clock game. Detroit Pistons on the second night of a back-to-back, if you want to call it that. They got absolutely obliterated by the Warriors last night. They are playing the Sacramento Kings. Sacramento is a 6-point favorite. It's a 221 total. Records coming in here: Detroit 10-33, Sacramento 18-28. Killian Hayes is questionable. He got hurt his hip during the game, put up a fat goose egg yesterday. That was no fun. And then guys that are out: Grant, Jackson, Livers, Magruder, and Olynyk. For Sacramento, they only have one guy, and he is out, and that's an important one, Tyrese Halliburton. But it does open up some really good plays on the Sacramento side for sure. I think this game, sneaky little game, 221 total. I really like this game. It's, again, Detroit the second night of a back-to-back, not going to matter that much. Detroit's 11th in pace and Sacramento 5th. So you got a great combination. They're going to get up and down the floor. And they both stink defensively, 22nd and 26th respectively. So you've got that good combination. We haven't had a lot of those in this 13-game slate of super pace from both teams, poor defense from both teams. Plus the spread's only 6. So, this should be a game that is very targetable. It makes sense. Hopefully Killian Hayes sits out, because I think that would bring Corey Joseph into play at 4-9, and he's been known to go from, not playing or playing 10 minutes to boom, 40, putting 40 on the board. So he's in consideration. Cade Cunningham hit some nice shots and stretches, look good. They just are such a bad team. He's at 7-3. Diallo's down to 6-6. He was poor yesterday. Sadiq Bey was awful. He's 6-8. Isaiah Stewart showed a little action in there at 4-8, but he's a foul waiting to happen like every 2 minutes. So not wanting to dive out of my seat for any of these guys, but I would like to have one. So Corey would be my first choice if Hayes doesn't play. And if I'm going to spend up for a mid-level or close to mid-level guy, I'd make that choice between Cunningham, Diallo, and Bey, and it's a toss-up. It really is. On the Sacramento side, De'Aaron Fox elevated with Halliburton being out, but he is 8-4, and he's not the most consistent player. He's not a good outside shooter, and when that's not falling, he doesn't generally get to his number. But I think it's a perfect game situation for him to have a big one. You're going to have a lot of guys going to lower priced Terrence Davis at 5-3, and deservedly so. For a guy that's that low priced, he's been a terrific points per minute DFS guy. Looks like he's going to get enough run with starting for in this spot, for Halliburton. But he does have Hield and Davion Mitchell pressing him, for minutes as well. So I don't think he's a automatic play. Harrison Barnes, I think at 5-9 is very fair price. Marvin Bagley has shown different times throughout the year that he's stepping up and playing a better role. He's 5-5, which is cheap. And then how about Rashawn Holmes? He's only 4-4. So the question is, if he stays that cheap, he's hard not to go with. I know that he's coming back. They've eased him back. But the algorithm, whatever, set him super low. That's a guy, I think at times last year approached 8K. So the fact that he's only 4-4 sort of amazing. So I'll be digging in. If he's going to get over 25 minutes at that price, he's a no-brainer here. And again, the guys off the bench, though, their depth is good. Heald, Mitchell, Metu, Damian Jones being back. I mean, they've got guys that can come in and play and give them some depth. So more than likely, one pay up, one value play from the Sacramento side, and then one play from Detroit. So this will probably be, of all the games, my highest owned game with, if you want to call it that, with 2 or possibly 3 players. All right, believe it or not, we're at game 13. It's a 10:30 game. It's Indiana Pacers, Los Angeles Lakers. It is the first night of a back-to-back for the Pacers. We already know Miles Turner has some kind of stress reaction, not quite fracture or whatever, but it's serious. When big men have foot problems, it's in his foot, that's an alarm. So he's going to be out for a while. That certainly hurts his trade potential here as the deadline's coming up. But Lakers are favored by 5 here against the Pacers. 223 total, 109 implied for the Pacers, 114 for the Los Angeles Lakers. We have Pacers 15-29. Hard to believe with that team, but I told you Carlisle's not a great coach. Lakers even 22-22. Also read an article last night that Vogel's just about on his way out. So I expect maybe he gets knocked out of here unless they go on a big winning streak. So 2 somewhat unstable teams right now. Stinking Malcolm Brogdon, man, he's questionable again. He's been questionable, I believe, the last 8 times and hasn't played any of them. So I have no idea how you count him in. He'll certainly come back one of them, so we're going to need the news on him. I'm not going to mess with it, though, because even if he is back and he has a sprain or Achilles issue, I can't see them blowing him out minutes. After that, Lamb also questionable. McConnell, Turner, and Warren are out. For the Lakers, probable on LeBron James. First time he's been listed probable all season. Dwight Howard also probable. Carmelo Anthony's the questionable player here. And the guys out, Davis, Dumbuyu, and Nunn. All right, let's look at statistically talking about this last game. 22nd in pace for Indiana. Lakers are 9th, so pace up game for the Pacers. Defensively, nothing to write home about at all. 23 for the Pacers, 18 for the Lakers. So that could mean some decent points in this game. You're going to definitely have some people jamming guys in. I don't know if you saw the highlight of Westbrook's dunk on Gobert the other night. Oh, my goodness. It was the night before last. Look that one up. Westbrook dunk on Gobert. It was the real ticket. And Westbrook's no spring chicken. He's been around, but that dunk, unbelievable dunk. He's probably going to get some play just because he had a step-up game with all that attention. But I have no idea how you trust Russell. He's 9'3", still pretty expensive for a guy that has generally disappointed on most outings. LeBron's all the way up to 11'3" still. He's been in that neighborhood. Is he a pay-up option here? Absolutely. I don't know if you can go with him and Joker. That might be the decision for me for the pay-up. After that, it becomes very clouded. Bradley, I don't want any part of. I don't care how cheap he is. Ariza, you can't trust him. Howard, Anthony, if he plays. Tucker, Reeves. I guess Monk's the next best option at 5'6". I want to make sure he's going to get enough minutes. And then we just have to go from there. So almost a LeBron or bust for me at this point with the Lakers. For the Pacers, it's much different, especially if Brogdon sits again. Karis LeVert, 7'9", is in play. He hasn't been exactly himself lately, but I think, he deserves, some acknowledgement here. The Lakers only favored by 5 again, by the way, and the Pacers are just an utter disaster. And I know the Lakers haven't been good either, but I think the Lakers could win this by double digits, and I'm a little bit afraid to have too much exposure in this game. Don't really want to take the roll the dice on a Washington or Sykes. Just not sure who's going to get the majority of those minutes. Justin Holiday's been very inconsistent. Torrey Craig's not a DFS style player. You do have Sabonis at 10-1, which is expensive, but it's going to be pretty much if we have Brogdon out, LeVert and Sabonis, it's going to be those two all you can eat pretty much. But it's a tough call. So I don't have a problem getting to either LeVert or Sabonis here. I think those are the only two targets. Because after that, you've just the guys I mentioned too: Washington, Holiday, Craig, Brissett, Duarte, Lance Stevenson. You just have a lot of guys. Looks like Jeremy Lamb could be back. Is Sykes going to still get any minutes? Just not worth going that deep. So, you would think this game would look better, but definitely some question marks. And again, if it gets out of hand at all, I would think Carlisle's going to yank his guys because tomorrow they play again. It's back-to-back for them. So that scares me, but wouldn't mind plucking somebody out here. But if I do, it's going to be expensive. Probably LeVert, Sabonis, and LeBron would be the three guys that I may pick one out of if I can save enough salary here to finish it off strong. So that is it, my friends. 13 big ones. I love it. This is the kind of slate that we dominate here at Coach Talk. We love these big slates. We've had great success in playing them, and we hope tonight's one of those nights. So come join us, dfscoachtalk.com, as little as $10 for 3 days. I mean, jump on in here. We'll get you that back in a double up, $10 double up before you can sit down in your chair. So come join us. We'd love to have you. If you're following us watching this on YouTube, quick thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, give us a quick comment. On Twitter, we're at DFS Coach Talk. I am at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. So buckle in, get ready for the double slate, the main and after hours for our members. And then tomorrow's a nice, calm 3-game slate. So big difference from tonight, but I'll definitely be back for that one as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you. And we're definitely going to be hammering it tonight. And we'll be back again tomorrow when we look to crush it in NBA DFS.